Okay, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. Today we've got John. So he's joining us over from Texas in America. So John is a father, he's also a husband, and he is an owner of a family-owned jewelry store. So he's been in the program for about 5 months, and he's kindly agreed to come on the channel today and share his story of giving up alcohol. So it's going to be awesome. So thanks so much for coming today, John.
Thank you so much for having me, Leon.
Yes, good to get you here. So, first question, John, is what impact had alcohol had on your life before you decided to do something about it and start the program?
Um, in my family, especially on my dad's side, it was always around. My grandfather worked for Anheuser-Busch in the accounting department. So as long as I can remember, any kind of family holidays, birthdays, Easter's, whatever we all got together, there was always beer around. Um, so I think and with some of your other videos, you talked about, how, um, it was just what we thought we had to do as adults. We turned 18, then we could drink. If we were able, at the time 18 and then 21, you're able to drink, then that's what adults do. So it wasn't anything really frowned upon. Looking back now, I could see several of my cousins and maybe aunts or uncles that abused it a lot, but nothing that was out of the ordinary. So you get into high school and had a couple parties, and somebody offers you a beer or whatever. I'd been around my whole life. Was like, that's fine.
Mm-hmm.
And then you get into college and kind of now you're on your own and doing stuff. And for me, it was even after college and up until recently this last year, I felt that I needed to drink to enjoy myself at an event, at a gathering, at a party, or whatever it was. I couldn't be myself, or I wasn't going to have that much fun. And so I would do that, and not to the extent where it was one of these like every day, all the day, all month, everything like that. It was just on occasions and all that. But I could notice that I was leaning on that more to do that. And as you get older, your tastes change. So I went from beer and mixed drinks to just straight bourbon or stuff on the rocks, and you can't do too many of those.
Mm-hmm. So, how was that drinking impacting your life, and when would you say it started becoming a problem?
Started impacting my life, I could tell probably um 2 or 3 years ago, probably, where I would, we would go out with friends, my wife and I, and stuff, and everybody's drinking, and my wife really doesn't drink a whole lot at all. And so I would drink, and I was always the one, growing up and around my friends, that was trying to be the responsible one, saying, okay, I'm going to make sure that everybody gets home okay and everything like that. And I would try to get behind the wheel and drive because I'd done it for so many years before. And my wife was like, you can't do that, especially, in our town. People may know who you are if you're at these places. And sometimes, like most people, I'm sure, when I would start drinking, my filter would go away.
Yep.
And I'm going to tell you what I feel about something or whatever. And if I had customers out somewhere, we're at a restaurant or something like that, that could jeopardize our business. So I got to that point, and then my kids, who are now 13 and 10, had kind of looked at me and just told me, like, Dad, why do you drink so much? Or they would see my whiskey glass or whatever on the table and just, well, it's Dad's drink. It was hard for me. I knew I probably was drinking too much probably a year and a half ago. And it would be you talked about with the self-will and motivating and stuff and trying to stop. I cut back. I'm not going to do that. In my industry and business owner, This time of year, Christmas time is really, really crucial for us when not everybody kind of, is going to get some jewelry and stuff. And there's a lot of stress to make sure everybody, I have everything they need and everything. And I would drink more often than I would throughout the rest of the year. And then what that would do, I would just attribute, okay, it's just the time of year. It's what we do, get through it and everything. Well, that kept going into January, February, March, and just all that and spiraled down. So I would say about a year and a half ago, I first recognized that this is getting out of hand a little bit.
Yeah. So for you, you started noticing like you'd behave a bit differently when you were drinking. Your kids started noticing. Your wife was noticing, and then it sounds like you were pretty much self-medicating, where the stress would increase, and then you kind of use alcohol to just release the stress, and then that just kind of continued, and you didn't really expect it.
Yeah, it was one of those where I would feel like this is what would take this pressure or this stuff off my shoulders, off my head. It would release it. And that's what it would do. And it would for that hour or two or whatever. But then that stress and that worry or whatever the problem I was dealing with was back the next day. It was still there. I didn't get rid of it. But I was always told myself that that's what I had to do. And that's what alcohol would do for me. But my wife had several talks with me of just that I was a different person when I drank. Sometimes I couldn't see it. I didn't hear it in my voice or my affection of tone or whatever. But she would tell me that. And then I had, my brothers and my mom and everybody kind of relay the same message to me. And so that was kind of an eye opener as well.
Yeah. Like it works for an hour, but then there's a cost, right? And the cost is far greater. But so, how successful were your attempts? Because you mentioned like doing it on your own, self-will, cutting back, slowing down. How successful were you with that?
I got to one time, I remember my wife challenged me, maybe it's been now 2 years now, maybe, to not drink for 3 months. And it was coming off, it was right before Christmas time. So knew that was going to be stressful and stuff like that. And just said, can you do it? And yeah, I can do it. If I put my mind to something, I'm going to be able to do it. And so I did. 3 months. We had gala events. I had parties to go to and stuff. And I had water and it was great. And it was fine. In my mind, I was like, that 3 months hit. I said, see, I showed you I could do it. And then started drinking it. I didn't drink as often, but I would start drinking again. And that would only, the few times I would drink then turned into, instead of 2 times a week, it was 3 times a week or 4 or whatever. And it wasn't like where every time I was drinking, I was having 10 drinks and all that stuff. It would be 1 or 2 drinks after work and then drive home. And that was her big thing. And I totally understand. I mean, you never should, if anything, get behind a wheel after having something in your system. And so that was that one time. I actually had ran across your stuff on YouTube. It's funny how those algorithms work when you're thinking about stuff and all of a sudden it pops up. And it had really been, I'd really been kind of toying with the idea of like, hey, I really got to take this serious or I could, lose a lot. And saw several of your videos, and then emailed you, contacted you, and set up everything. At that point, I was like, no, I can do this, and I'm ready to do this. I did the 4 steps and looked through everything, read everything, understood it, and probably a month in, I had it was a really stressful day, and this is not an excuse or anything, but a really stressful day. I fell back to what I knew, and it was just having a couple beers at work with one of my employees. And then that turned into going to the restaurant in our little strip area, had a
Mm-hmm.
couple more drinks, and then went to meet my family at dinner. And my wife could tell that I had drank. She didn't say anything until we got home, and said, you lied to me that you didn't drink. And I said, and I would do that because I didn't want to. I'm one of those type of people that I don't want to disappoint anybody. I really care what people think, and I figured if I could hide it, then I'm disappointing myself, not everybody else. I can deal with myself versus anybody else's feelings towards me. And we had a very long and hard discussion, and she actually kicked me out of the house.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought she was joking at first, and she said, "No, I've told you before. I don't like you drinking and driving. I don't like that you lied to me." And once I realized that it was serious, I was pretty upset. This is 10 o'clock at night. And so I left thinking that it was going to be like 2 or 3 days, everything like that. I messaged you maybe 2 or 3 days afterwards, just because that was what I needed. I guess, looking back, I needed to hear. Looking back, I was even starting the Soberclear, I was doing it for them. I was doing it for my wife, and my kids, my family. I wasn't fully, I don't think. I mean, I was doing it for myself, but I wasn't 100% doing it for myself.
Yep.
And it was at that point that I went over and with your advice and watched all the videos again, read the book, did the journaling, and really kind of asked some hard questions to myself about myself, like why do you want to drink? Why do you want to jeopardize ruining your family and your life and everything that you've worked hard for? And that was my rock bottom, and I'm glad I noticed it. There's a lot of people that I know that don't know when they hit rock bottom, and they can't do anything about it. So I worked really hard at proving that I could do this. I was out of the house for 6 weeks. Luckily, I have family, my mom that lives pretty close, so that's where I stayed. I would still do my daily routine with the kids, take them to school, do all that stuff, drop them off after, pick them up from practices and rehearsals and stuff, and have dinner, and then I would go.
Mm-hmm.
And I think for my wife, it was me proving that I was serious this time, and I was putting family first, them first, and myself first in front of everything else, and knowing that, I could do this and that I needed to do it. And so that's been 4 months since that happened. And I haven't had a real desire. And we do talk about it a lot in the program of how it's, so easy to just, like, you're going to have those cravings or desires, but then it just kind of all of a sudden just goes away, and you don't think about it that much. And I can be around. I mean, I've been to several different gala events and private parties and stuff like that, and everybody around me is drinking, and I don't even feel like I need to go grab a beer, grab a cocktail or whatever. I ask for a Sprite or a water. Every so often, if they have a non-alcoholic beer, I'll grab one just to hold it and I'll sip on it, but that's about it. But I just have no desire to do that because I know now what it would cost me.
Yeah. So I think, your situation, you started the program, all was good, but it was, the commitment was like, I wouldn't say that you didn't want to stop, but I think it was like kind of get a family off my case, just do something, get the ball rolling. But then as soon as you kind of had, that drink, and then it caused that, the falling out. That was when it was like, hang on, like you really did the introspection then, and then you came to the logical conclusion that alcohol does nothing for you, and now ever since it kind of clicked for you, and you went through the modules again. That's been it, and it's been 4 months, and like you said, no desire. It's awesome to hear, man.
Yeah, and it's weird because obviously hindsight's 2020, and you look back and see, and I always, like I said before, felt like I needed to drink because everybody else was drinking. All my friends are drinking, and you have those friends in your group that every time you go somewhere, drink too much, whatever. But for the most part, everybody's hanging out at dinner, having a couple glasses of wine or doing whatever. Then you go somewhere else and you have a good time. And I was like, why can't I do that? Like,
Mm-hmm.
I felt like I was doing that, but to my wife or my brother or somebody else that was with us, I wasn't my same self.
Yeah.
Like if I was my same self, joking around, calm, laughing at everything, they're like, that's fine. It's just something happens and a switch flips and you just voice everything that you want to say. And it's just not you.
Mm-hmm.
I see that now, right? Looking back. But it's really, it's a great feeling when I know that I can go somewhere and still command a table, command a room when I have to give a talk or we're doing something for a gala event or something like that. And I'm completely sober. And everybody wants to listen to me and thinks that I have something great to say and I add value to the conversation and stuff like that. Where before, I wouldn't think I would. I'd have to have that drink to knock that edge off or get that courage up or whatever it is. And, I don't. And my wife has told me several different times after these things, like, do you see? You can do this, like,
Mm.
without it. You've always been able to do it. You just figured that I needed that little liquid courage to just get up there and go.
So now you're saying
And
like the true self confidence of you has come back out.
it has. Yeah, it has. I mean, obviously, you have, clearer mind, make greater decisions. The mornings are great. I've always been a guy that works out, and that's one of my stress releases too. So my workouts are better. My family time is great. My kids um, are starting to really now like trust me in the fact of going somewhere and not drinking or coming home and not smelling like alcohol or anything like that, but also spending a lot of time with them. They're actually opening up more to me about
Nice.
stuff going on in their days and stuff. And so, I mean, I wouldn't trade it for the world.
Awesome. So yeah, so big family benefits, working out, training well, clarity of mind, smashing your mornings. What about like, because you've got a business, right? Has your business improved at all over the past 4 months?
Um, a little bit. I wouldn't say so much that my alcohol affected that to the extent of I wasn't drinking throughout the day. I drank when
Mm-hmm.
we closed.
Mm.
And, luckily, knock on wood, I never had an instance where I was out somewhere at a dinner and, got a little carried away and one of my customers saw me or whatever. I always kind of made sure that I, kept it together and stuff like that. Our business is thrived just because of the environment where we're at. Um, I think maybe the morale, for me, getting the employees around, and then also really managing my stress level at the store because that was my number one factor to drink.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't my kids or my family or anything like that. It was the stress that I would be under from work of having to be the boss and making all these decisions and everything like that. And to where I was just doing a lot and put a lot on my shoulders. So that's what I had to do to get it off of my shoulders. It felt like. So in the last 4 months of managing that stress, like we're talking right now, my store opened at 10. I normally would be there first one there at 9:30 to put the store in. This is my 20th year in the business, and I'm like, I don't need to do that anymore. I can get in at 11, 10:30 whenever I want to get in. I've earned that right. And so that kind of stuff of kind of self-care and knowing that, hey, you know, to my employees, you know, I've trained you enough and hope and expect enough that if you could take care of this situation and whatever decision you make on it, we can go over and review it. And if it's great, great. If it's not, then we learn from it and we move on. And so that gives them freedom too to kind of, you know, pretend like it's their own store too. And what kind of decision would you do in this? So that frees up some of that tension and stress from me. I own the store with my brothers, and they've helped out in several ways with that too, of taking stuff off my plate. So that part of the business, yes, has thrived. As far as our, you know, sales and basically the front part of the store it really wasn't affected.
Got it, man. Got it. But so you as a leader and you personally are dealing with stress better, so there have been benefits. And but awesome, man. So if there was somebody, John, that was, you know, they're kind of like 90% of the way there, they're thinking of joining a program, but they're just like 10% that they're just like, nah, I don't think I want to do this. It's a scam, whatever it is in their head. What's one thing that you would say to that person to get them over the line, to get them into the program?
I would say that from my personal experience, that it is worth every penny. You as a coach, and just the idea and concept of, because most people that have a drinking problem don't consider themselves an alcoholic, right? And you technically really aren't. I mean, I didn't consider myself an alcoholic. I didn't get up in the morning and have to have a drink or do anything like that. It's just if the situation was there and when there was alcohol, sure, I'll drink it, stuff like that. So just to know, and you do a very good job of saying, you know, you're not an alcoholic. It is a disease. It is a addiction thing that you can overcome. And the great thing too, in the first part of the Soberclear is when you're going through the module, you say like, you don't have to stop it at that point. You want to gradually kind of get away from it until it clicks with you and knows like, hey, you don't need to have this. I would just tell somebody that's on the fence of it is that invest in yourself, because there's something in you or somebody's told you something that's made you actually want to look at this and research and find Soberclear, you know, talk to yourself or anybody. There's a reason that you're there. And to, you know, keep your eyes open, listen to it and know that it's really easy and you can do it. And the benefits that you get long-term are far greater than any type of drink you would ever have or any kind of party that you'd want to go to and drink at. You know, it's totally worth everything that you could, because the best thing that you can invest in is yourself. So why not?